significantly increased its development of the Arctic by providing financial and technical support for ocean thermal energy conversion systems. Contention 1 is inherency. Ocean thermal energy conversion is critical to respond to climate change, but the technology is overlooked and lacks support. O'Reilly 2024. The ocean holds immense potential. OTEC stands out as a promising technology. OTEC can generate electricity while contributing to a sustainable future. Innovative solutions like OTEC are crucial alternatives to fossil fuels. Contention 2 is warming. First, Arctic warming risks a global climate crisis. Action now is key. INN 2024. The Arctic, the Earth's canary in the coal mine, is warming up to 4 times faster than the global average. The Arctic recorded its warmest summer to date, driven by feedback loops. Urgency of the climate crisis demands more comprehensive action. Reducing emissions and climate research are critical. Immediate actions become increasingly clear. And Arctic communities are uniquely vulnerable. OTEC is key to solve. Tamiz and Denser 2022. Arctic regions have drastic effects on climate change. Arctic warming exacerbates food insecurity, and declining wildlife is recognized as a major threat to food insecurity. OTEC is promising. It can be used in an Arctic environment, and it can exploit the temperature difference between air ambient temperature and ocean water temperature. The energy source is almost unlimited. Next, specifically, OTEC can power carbon capture technology, OLEM 2025. The 2018 report noted need for widespread negative emissions technologies to limit warming. OTEC is a form of renewable energy that uses cold, deep ocean water and warm surface ocean water to power a heat engine. Studies consider OTEC as a method of clean energy. OTEC has also been suggested as a clean energy source for CO2 negative emissions technology. OTEC offers an exciting new approach for carbon capture plants into the deep ocean. And climate change risks extinction. Only renewable energy can save us. Carrington 2024. Earth's vital signs have hit record extremes. The future of humanity hangs in the balance. Temperature of oceans has hit an all-time high, driven by record burning of fossil fuels, which jeopardizes life on Earth. Climate change has already displaced millions, with the potential to displace billions. Oil and gas dominate. There was stiff resistance, but every 1/10 of a degree of warming is critically important. We need bold, transformative change. Next is solvency. The plan solves. Government support, including financial incentives and a demonstration plant, are key to large-scale deployment of OTEC. Jalil et al. 2021. Established energy companies are keen to invest in renewable projects. There is a need for government support. The support could be fiscal incentives, low interest rates, access to coastal land, new support for installation. The main challenge to scaling is confidence. Experience gained from building and operating a plant will allow engineers and material specialists to identify suitable designs. The potential is enormous. Estimates have impeded developments, but more awareness will help attract support for measures to speed up adoption of OTEC. Next is the water advantage. The status quo risks global water crisis. Desalination is key to prevent shortages. Wood 2024. Rapid population growth, increased water consumption. Desalination can play a vital role in providing water. Water scarcity occurs when demand outstrips supplies. By 2030, there could be a 40% global shortfall in freshwater resources. The salt content makes this water unsuitable to drink. This is where desalination comes in. OTEC is key to desalination. The plan solves water shortages. O'Reilly 2024. Another application of OTEC is desalination. Freshwater scarcity is a global concern. This has enormous implications for drought-stricken areas. Especially small land nations. With advancements in this tech, it is plausible to consider hybrid plants that utilize both electricity generation and desalination. Applications are not merely futuristic ideas, they are tangible solutions. Next, water scarcity risks global war, mass refugees, and poverty. Now is key. UN 2023. Water is at the heart of most crises. Climate change has only exacerbated water insecurity. Water could become a real security risk that could lead to armed conflicts. International conflicts will break out and migration will place stresses on countries. Access to water turns poverty into possibility. Now is the time to act. Thank you. Now stand ready for cross.
Your Jaleel evidence says OTEC needs international government support. Why would support from the U.S. alone be enough?
The plan provides money and technical support to build a demonstration OTEC plan, which our evidence says is key to expanding. U.S. support helps encourage investment in OTEC in other countries.
Your OLM evidence assumes that OTEC plans would include technology like direct air capture and carbon sequestration, or DACS, to remove carbon from the atmosphere. Does your plan include funding for that?
No, but it doesn't have to. Our evidence says OTEC provides a power source for DACS, which is the only thing stopping them from being used more. OTEC makes DACS impossible in places where they can't be powered now.
Isn't it true that desalination would be far more useful in places that are currently undergoing water shortages, such as the Middle East or the Western United States?
Yes, but that's why with our water advantage, we will be distributing the water that we desalinate in the Arctic to those other countries that are currently facing shortages.
Okay, well, you say the plan happens in the Arctic, but where exactly is this demonstration plant being built?
It would likely be near places in the Arctic that the U.S. has control over, like Alaska, where there's enough of a temperature difference between the ocean surface and the deeper water where OTEC could work.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That's cross.
Thank you.
Why did you ask the order of the 1 and C is going to be 2 off and then case in the order of warming, water, and solvency. Is anyone not ready? Okay. First off, the Russia disadvantage. Russia's economy is stable now, but profits from oil exports are key. Fenton and Coliander 411. The Russian economy faces long-term challenges. However, the Russian economy has weathered the storm. Despite predictions the economy could collapse, it has not only endured but adapted. Profits from hydrocarbon exports allow the Russian state to limit spending trade-offs. As money pours into the country's base, domestic defense companies are able to offer high salaries. And renewable energy like OTEC is a critical threat to Russian oil. Salkenver and Sahag, 2022. Rapid energy transitions, a key challenge for Russia, is the loss of a key source of revenue. The study explores the impacts of energy transitions on oil trade between Russia and its partners. Findings reveal risks facing Russian oil exports. Renewable energy has been a substitute for oil. Clean energy policies are a threat to Russian oil exports. And fossil fuels are key to Russia's economy. The plan creates an economic shock. Smith-Nonini, 22. To build your economy too tightly around oil is a very bad idea. Russia's over-reliance puts the nation at risk every time oil prices drop. It is hard to overstate the centrality of hydrocarbons to the Russian economy. And economic shocks risk total collapse. The impact is nuclear war. Model 2023. Russia is fragile. It's not difficult to imagine a scenario growing economic instability will compel Russia's units to seek independence. If the spark does come, Russian collapse will be destabilizing and violent. React with violence to any secessionism. Russian groups might turn on each other and use violence. All these dangers would be compounded by the pressure of thousands of nuclear weapons. On to the biodiversity dissad. Arctic ecosystems are on the brink. Now is key to preserve biodiversity. Summercorn and Lancaster, 25. The Arctic's unique ecosystems under pressure. Arctic species are in good shape because habitats and ecosystems are still largely intact. We must strengthen current and future food security, livelihoods, and cultural integrity. And OTEC destroys ocean biodiversity and risks creating dead zones. Biodiversity, 2023. OTEC disrupts large-scale ocean circulation patterns and alters surface water properties. Local marine life and ecosystems highly susceptible to temperature variations. Increased algae blooms creating dead zones, making it impossible for aquatic life to survive. And the impact is extinction. The Arctic Ocean is critical to our planet's survival. Carmack et al. 2019. The Arctic Ocean is critical to our planet's survival. Critical driver of the global oceanic conveyor belt. Changes in the physical environment of the marine Arctic will push systems beyond tipping points. Changes lead to species extinctions, threatening fisheries and food security. The Arctic and its oceans are a key barometer of global risk. On to case. First, on the warming advantage, climate change is irreversible. We're too far gone. Hatch 2024. People don't understand carbon. Carbon will still be blanketing the Earth in 1,000 years. That's why climate change is largely irreversible. There's no way to make climate change go away. Impacts would keep getting worse over centuries. The path to zero is fantastically challenging. And term. OTEC causes long-term warming. Carnegie Science 2015. OTEC could facilitate direct physical cooling. Simulations showed that while temperatures could be cooled, warming would actually start to cruise just 50 years after the pipe go into use. After 60 years, the pipes would cause an increase in global temperature of up to 1.2 degrees Celsius. Over centuries, pipes put the Earth on a warming trend towards a temperature increase of 8.5 degrees Celsius. And no impact to climate change. Humans can adapt. Lomberg 2022. Can humans adapt? The overwhelming answer is yes. History shows very clearly that we can adapt. Studies show we adapt to negative impacts. We're also more resilient. We know how to deal with that much better. Humans adapt. Model shows we will do so. On to the water advantage. Technology can't solve water scarcity. Changing behavior is key. Sarni 2024. The drought highlights a bias for technology instead of solutions. We appear to be focused on tech as a cure-all. By not returning enough water to the natural world harms other water users downstream. Technology alone can't save us. And desalination fails. It's way too expensive. Balbuena and De Felicia 2023. Desalination is not worth it. Will cost us. Water is way more expensive. A desalination plant pumps out water that's 73% more expensive than current water supply. Many projects have been tied to privatization, drives up costs, means less transparency and accountability. And no risk of water wars. Shortages lead to cooperation. Schmeier et al. 2019. Conflicts are in the headlines. Journalists point out perceived links between water and violence. Water challenges do not lead to conflicts. The links are far more complex. Water-related conflict does not emerge. On to solvency. OTEC doesn't work. It's too expensive and historically has failed. Rossi 2024. OTEC has been prohibitively expensive. Tech requires a floating offshore platform, costs tens of millions of dollars. Lockheed Martin jumped into OTEC. It didn't go anywhere. Offshore plants have failed because of the cost of the tech and the large platform required. Currently, not one offshore OTEC plant is operating.
You say our plan hurts Russia's oil money, but does your evidence say one OTEC plant in Alaska is enough to cause that?
Not by itself, but our evidence says that clean energy products like this one are part of a bigger trend. When countries switch to clean energy, they need less oil. That hurts Russia's oil sales over time.
Okay. You say OTEC is too expensive and hasn't worked in the past, but our plan gives money to test it. Does your evidence say that a government-funded test won't help?
Our evidence doesn't talk specifically about a test plan like yours, but it shows that historically even big companies gave up on OTEC because it was really hard and really expensive. So even though your plan might help a little bit, there's no proof that it could fix any of the major shortcomings that we've seen OTEC have.
You also say that OTEC can make the earth warmer in the long run, but your study is about ocean pipes, not real functioning OTEC plants. Does your evidence look at how actual OTEC plants work?
No, the study looks at ocean pipes, not real OTEC pipes, but it still warns about specifically mixing deep ocean water, how that can change cloud cover and ice. That's the same process that OTEC uses, so we should still be wary of the risks.
Thank you.
Alright, for my 2AC, I'll give an off-time roadmap. I'll be going on case in the order of the water advantage, the warming advantage, and insolvency, and I'll be answering their off-case positions of the Russian dissad and the biodiversity dissad. Is everyone ready? Okay? Now, onto the water advantage. First, for an overview, the impact of the water advantage is that water scarcity risks a global war, mass refugees, and poverty. The plan solves the impact because OTEC allows for technology to remove the salt from water and make it more drinkable. Vote AF. AF outweighs on time frame. Water scarcity is coming quickly and stressing global governments now, so this requires quick and immediate action. Now onto the line by line. First, they say that technology can't solve. Extend our O'Reilly evidence. OTEC solves desalination by providing electricity and new technology to remove water from salt water in a variety of places. Their evidence is not about OTEC, but about tech that was used in California, which means that's not really applicable to our case. Second, they say that desalination is too expensive. Extend our O'Reilly evidence. It's expensive now because we don't have the technology. The AS OTEC project makes desalination cheaper. Their evidence says that desalination makes water more expensive. But our argument is that we won't have any water if we don't try desalination. If we don't try desalination, which happens to be better than paying, which has to be better than paying for more than your water bill. Next, they say there's no risk of water wars. Extend our evidence for the United Nations. Water is a real security risk that leads to armed conflicts globally. Their evidence says the links between water and war is complex, but that's our argument. It's complex, but it still causes war. Next, on to the warming advantage. First, here's my overview. The impact of the warming advantage is that climate change causes extinction. The plan solves for the impact because OTEC provides clean energy. It removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Vote affirmative because case outweighs our magnitude. Climate change is an existential crisis that can risk killing all of us. Only stopping warming has a chance of stopping the planet from cooking us all alive. Now onto the line by line. First, they say that climate change is irreversible, but that is a misread. Extend our OLM 2025 evidence. OTEC powers DAX, which removes CO2 from the air and permanently stores it in offshore reservoirs. OLM uses the Earth System Climate Model to show that this works at scale for at least 500 years with minimum environmental impact. That's not speculative, that's real cutting-edge peer-reviewed climate modeling. The Hash 2024 card says that the only way to stop climate change from getting worse is to reach zero emissions. That's exactly what our plan does. Next, they say that OTEC causes warming, but that's not about our plan. Extend our O'Reilly 2024 card. OTEC in the Arctic mixes water at a level which avoids disrupting the ocean. The Carnegie Science 2015 evidence simulates ocean pipes, not OTEC. It doesn't account for real-world plant size, location, or usage. Next, they say that humans can adapt to climate change, but that's not a reason to do nothing. Extend our Carrington 2024 evidence. It says that dunes face extreme heat, ecosystem collapse, mass migration, and possible extinction. Our advantage is about stopping the climate feedback loops, sea level rises, and irreversible Arctic warming. You can't adapt to the depth of the Greenland ice sheet. The Lombard 2022 card says that climate change just makes people slightly less rich. By 2100, that's assuming that we do negation, which only the affirmative can do. Now, on to solvency. They say that OTEC is too expensive, but that's wrong. Extend our 1AC Jalil evidence. OTEC is not commercially viable, yet because of a lack of governmental support, not because it's fundamentally flawed. Our evidence specifically says that demonstration projects are critical to test the cold water pipes, prove reliability, and generate operational data that unlocks private investment. Their Rossi card only cites historical failures and general cost concerns. Our evidence is more recent, specific, and explains how cost drops after scaling. That's a reason why our plan is necessary to avoid the tipping point. Now on to the Russian dissad. Non-unique, Russia's economy is declining now. Edwards in Chernobyl 2025. Since Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, Russia's economy grew faster than all major economies. This is a mirage though. Growth is rapid but unnatural. Russia may soon feel the pain of its economy hitting its limits, driving up prices. President Trump said Russia's economy was in big trouble. Russia's worsening economic problems. Can lead to Putin coming to the negotiating table. Next, no link in turn. History proves oil exports embolden Russia. Moran 2022. A look back in the past reveals a strong correlation between soaring oil prices and Moscow's willingness to assert its aggression. The 2008 war in Georgia, the siege of Crimea, oil prices were at historically elevated levels. Those gains imbued the Kremlin with a sense of immunity. In each case, war was preceded by several years of high oil prices. Specifically, Russian oil exports from the war in Ukraine till the 2022. There seems to be a correlation between high oil prices and Russia's aggressive behavior. In 2008, Russia invaded Georgia. Oil was averaging $119 a barrel. If there ever was a perfect time, it is right now. Russia is reaping the benefits of high oil prices and wreaking havoc. And no impact, Russia will escalate using nuclear weapons. Kakimiko 2022, a wide range of experienced analysts have concluded that Russia's nuclear weapon can only be used in the extremes. Russia's nuclear arms are a political deterrent, unlikely to be employed. Now on to the biodiversity dissad. Non-unique Arctic ecosystems are threatened now. WWF 2024. Ocean temperatures are rising. Arctic warming is making the region more accessible. New shipping routes are opening up and can cause extreme damage to the Arctic ecosystems. No link in turn. OTEC is key to save oceans from climate change. A Street 2011. The ocean will become saltier. Desert areas are too salty to host most life. OTEC may help to bring cold water to warm surfaces. On a large scale, OTEC could lower surface temperature. Pulling water from the deep may help create rich oases. And specifically, oil biodiversity is low now. OTEC is key to solve. Quirk 2015. Most of the world's ocean is lifeless, as a lifeless desert. Half of all wild seafood is harvested from less than 1/10 of 1% of ocean surface. If OTEC plants allow for double the amount of upwellings, we double the amount of wild sea life. Next, and no impact, ocean biodiversity won't collapse. Collins 2019, Ecosystem restoration can cause species to return. It's difficult to have a complete loss of biodiversity. Try reintroducing key species. If marine habitats can specifically be replenished with life, this means that ecosystems could recover from the damage caused by development. I now stand ready for cross-examination.
You say our Russia argument is wrong because their economy is already weak, but if that's true, wouldn't a new shock from your plan make things even worse?
No. Our evidence is saying that Russia is staying afloat because of short-term boosts like the war spending and leftover savings. One clean energy project in Alaska isn't going to make that much of a difference. Their problems are much bigger than that.
Okay, thank you. And you say that our warming argument is about ocean pipes, not OTEC, but OTEC still causes the movement of deep ocean water. Why wouldn't that cause the same problems that we described?
Because our OTEC systems don't move the water in the same way. Our evidence says that they mix the water slowly and just at the right depth, so it doesn't really hurt the ocean or sea ice. Your study is based on extreme changes that don't really happen with real OTEC.
And you say that our solvency evidence is old, but even with a test plant, how do you know that private companies will want to invest?
Our evidence says that that is exactly the missing piece. A missing piece, yeah. Companies don't want to invest if they see it actually working. A test plant shows that it's possible and viable and gives investors more confidence. It's not a sure thing, but it's the first step in the right direction.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's take prep for the neg block.
We will be taking prep. Please run our time starting now. Okay, so the order is going to be biodiversity, then Russia. Okay, starting now. So first on the biodiversity decide, we're going to kick this decide, which means we're no longer going to extend it. We will agree with affirmative and concede that there's no impact and that ocean biodiversity will never collapse and that it does not matter if the aff helps like biodiversity because there's no impact to biodiversity. And to respond to their no link and link turn, they say that they reduce marine salt content, but even if like you buy that, first like increased nutrients like mixing and like feeding photoplankton and algae does create like algal blooms, and OTEC doesn't solve for marine saltiness as it relies on the water cycle and quickens the evaporation pace, which in their own card states that that is what causes the increased saltiness to occur. So they don't get the link and the disside doesn't count as a net benefit of the affirmative. Next onto the Russia disside. First, the impact of the Russia disadvantage is nuclear war caused by economic collapse. The plan causes the impact because the U.S. investment in Arctic OTEC contributes to the global clean energy transition, which reduces demand for Russian oil exports, undermining the main pillar of Russia's economy. Russia is a petrostate, which means their economy entirely relies on oil, and the economic pressure of renewable energies accelerates instability, and our model evidence says that even a small shock could trigger Russia's collapse into a civil or nuclear conflict. Vote negative because the disadvantage outweighs on time frame and risk. Economic fragility is already building in Russia now, so collapse would happen sooner than climate impacts. And unlike climate change, which plays out over decades, the risk of nuclear chain reaction from Russian collapse is fast, unpredictable, and existential. Next, the disadvantage outweighs. Russian nuclear use is a global catastrophe. Alexander 24. Putin has issued his strongest threat yet. To believe Putin is not serious is a dangerous assumption. Global annihilation is overwhelming. There exists a bias because nuclear war did not happen, but that can't be guaranteed. Next, now onto the line by line. They say that Russia's economy is declining now, but first our Fenton and Colliander 25 evidence answers this. It says that Russia's economy is still holding on because of war spending and oil money. Things look shaky, but it hasn't collapsed yet. That means their plan could be the final push that causes real damage. Second, even their own card says that the economy looks strong on the outside, so it's just pretending to be strong. That proves that it's fragile and the plan makes things worse fast. Next, they say that Russia becomes dangerous because when it has a lot of oil money, taking away that money helps. But first, our Smith and Nonini 22 evidence answers this. It says that Russia loses oil money, so it doesn't just get weaker, it risks falling apart. And that's not safer, but more dangerous. Second, being bold and being broken are two different things, and our argument is that the plan makes Russia unstable, not just less aggressive, and that instability is what ends up leading to nuclear conflict. Third, the turn is wrong. Low oil prices increase the risk of conflict. Blankenship 24. When oil prices decline, petrostates say throw caution to the wind. Low prices increase conflict through oil gambits. During low oil price era, for example, Iran, Iraq, and Venezuela initiated disputes. Russia's decision to escalate its involvement in Syria was to divert attention from the country's economic woes amidst low oil prices. Declines in oil wealth led petrostates to initiate conflict. When oil prices were high, petrostates may be self-confident to refrain from picking fights. Next, they say that cutting oil money is good when it slows down Russia war, but first our Model 23 evidence answers this. It says that Russia loses oil money too fast and it could fall into civil war and chaos, and that chaos includes thousands of nuclear weapons with no one in control. Second, hurting their economy without a backup plan just makes everything worse. The plan sounds helpful, but it could backfire by making Russia collapse in a dangerous way. Third, renewable energy is an existential threat to Russia and the plan risks instability and conflict. Lockhart 22. Demand for oil, the crucial source of revenue for Russia, may decline irreversibly as the global energy transformation gathers momentum. This threatens the destabilizing for both Russia and the West. Change could be destabilizing. The Kremlin's bet on hydrocarbons is a high-stake gamble. With less oil, this would probably heighten feelings of vulnerability and contribute to even greater tension between Russia and the rest. Russia would probably pose an even graver threat. The temptation to use forces would grow, destabilize Russia, and increase the threat it poses. Next, they say no impact, but first, Russia would use its nuclear weapon if the country collapsed. That's our model evidence. Russia is a fragile state, and economic instability will push them towards total collapse. If Russia has no other options, they will have to use nuclear weapons to stop the end of their country. Their evidence is also old, and it's from before the invasion of Ukraine, and doesn't assume that Russia would become more aggressive after the invasion, therefore discounted on that fact. That is time.
Okay, so my first question is that you say that the plan hurts Russia by speeding up the move away from oil, but how does one clean energy plant in Alaska make really much of a difference?
So not by itself. One plant alone is not enough, but our evidence says that as the U.S. builds more clean energy projects, especially in places like the Arctic, it ends up sending a strong message to the world, which causes other countries to use less oil too, and that follow-on hurts Russia's oil money over time.
For my next question, you say that losing oil money could make Russia collapse, but doesn't your own evidence also say that countries that lose money sometimes start wars?
Yes, and that is our entire point. Our Model 23 evidence says that when oil prices drop and economy declines, Russia then has to deal with challenges from political groups that may want to violently break off or secede from the country. Our Blankenship card adds that when petrostates, countries that depend on selling oil, face economic decline, they have historically started violent civil conflicts to distract their citizens from how badly their economy is doing. Our DA is about both how cutting oil money increases desperation, which raises the chance of war, and government collapse, which could turn into civil wars all at the same time.
Okay, and for my last question, you said that Russia is weak, but if that's true, wouldn't it fall apart now what we do?
Not necessarily. Our evidence says that Russia may be weak, but it is still holding together. But if we take away more of their oil money, that could be the final push that makes them collapse. So without the plan, they are able to stay stable for a while.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the order of the 1 and R is going to be just case. First I'll go on warming, and then I'll talk about water and solvency. Is anyone not ready? This is 4 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
First, on water, warming inevitable. Extend that climate change can't be fully stopped. Our 1NC #2024 evidence says that even if we stop adding carbon to the air, the damage from past pollution keeps warming the planet for hundreds, if not thousands of years. That means sea levels keep rising and ice keeps melting no matter what. But for our evidence, Hatch focuses on the long term, which tells us what happens after we stop polluting, not just what happens if we build something new. Our card explains real Earth systems, while their Olim card uses a computer model that guesses what might happen if a bunch of big tech is built. We explain why warming keeps going even after society is able to stop polluting and reach zero emissions. Their argument skips that and just says clean energy solves it. They say only they stop extinction, but we say it's already too late to stop all of it, so their impact is overstated. Also extend that OTEC makes warming worse. Our 1NC Carnegie Science 2015 evidence says big underwater pipes like the ones used in OTEC can mess up ocean currents, reduce clouds, and make the Earth hotter, even up to 8.5 degrees Celsius if lots of OTEC is built. Prefer our argument because their card just says OTEC might be fine, but ours is from real scientists who modeled how deep ocean pipes change the whole climate system. They say our card isn't about their plan, but they also say their plan scales up OTEC. If they want OTEC used to grow, our warning applies. Their plan might help with emissions, but if the tech itself makes the planet hotter, this cancels out the benefits. This is a turn. We don't just say their plan doesn't solve warming, we say it makes it worse. That means you vote neg even if you care most about climate. This is an independent reason to vote neg. Onto the adaptation argument. Extend that humans can adapt to warming. Our 1NC Lomberg 2022 evidence says people are already safer than ever, even after more than 1 degree of warming. We can handle challenges like heat or rising seas if we plan ahead and use technology wisely. Prefer our argument because Lomberg uses real life data. He's not saying climate change is fake, just that we're good at dealing with it. Their Carrington card says scary stuff like billions could die, but that doesn't explain exactly how or when that would happen. They say you can't adapt to melting ice, but people adapt to hard things all the time. We've done it before and we can do it again. Onto water. On the water advantage, I'm only going to extend one argument. Desalination fails, it is way too expensive. Our 1NC Balbuena evidence says that ocean desalination isn't worth it because it is way more expensive than regular treated water, and that would massively increase water costs for low-income families. They say that OTAC makes it less expensive, but that's wrong. Our evidence says that desalination means that water becomes controlled by private companies, which means that even if OTAC costs less, it won't be available to people who need the water. This is proven by places like California, which have historically done ocean desalination. It has been a total failure. It's going to fail again. On to solvency. OTEC has not worked before. Our 1NC Varsity 2024 evidence says many people have tried to build OTEC and it keeps failing because it's super expensive. The pipes are fragile and storms break the equipment. Even big companies like Lockheed Martin or presidents like Jimmy Carter gave up. Prefer our evidence because Rossi shows the pattern. It's not just one failure, it's many. It explains why OTEC struggles, not just that it hasn't worked yet. Their Jalil card is all about what might happen in the future if things go well. But our card shows that things haven't worked in the past and why that's unlikely to change. Saying the government should support it doesn't fix the tech problems. Pipes still break, platforms still cost too much, it's still hard to build in the ocean. Believing OTEC will work isn't the same as proving that it will. We say history matters more than hope. Vote neg on presumption.
Okay. The order is going to be the water advantage, the warming advantage, and then the Russia DA. First, on water, we are going to kick the advantage, which means we are going to collapse to only our warming advantage. We will agree with the negative and concede that desalination fails. This means that the advantage is not relevant anymore. Now, onto our warming advantage. Extend our warming overview. Climate change is an extinction level threat. Only by reaching zero emissions and removing carbon already in the air can we stop the worst feedback loops. Our OLM 2025 evidence says our plan powers direct air capture using OTEC, which works for 500 plus years with minimal environmental risk. That is what it takes to prevent collapse. Vote affirmative because we outweigh on magnitude. Climate change affects everyone on Earth and threatens billions of lives. Also outweigh on probability. Our plan directly cuts emissions and removes carbon. Neg only guesses that something bad might happen. Now onto warming. They say warming is inevitable, but first, our OLM 2025 evidence answers. It says that reaching net zero emissions, which clean energy like OTEC helps us do, plus carbon removal can stop warming and keep the climate stable long term. Second, giving up because things are hard isn't a reason to stop trying. Our plan does exactly what science says we need. They say OTEC causes warming, but first, our O'Reilly 2024 evidence answers. It says that real OTEC plants gently mix water in a safe way that doesn't disturb the ocean or melt sea ice. Second, their Carnegie Science 2015 evidence doesn't even talk about OTEC. It simply simulates generic deep ocean pipes. That's like blaming wind turbines for tornadoes. It's simply not the same thing. They say humans can adapt, but first, our Carrington 2024 evidence answers. It says that billions face extreme heat, food shortages, and collapse. We can't adapt to losing the Greenland ice sheet or having methane explode from permafrost. Second, just because we adapted before does not mean that we can handle global extinction level damage. Next, onto solvency. They say OTEC hasn't worked, but first, our Jalil 2023 evidence answers. It says that OTEC isn't failing because it's broken. It's just underfunded. Our plan builds a test plant, collects data, and proves that it's ready for investment. Second, their Varsity 2024 evidence is outdated and negative. It only talks about old projects, not current tech or government backing. Now onto the Russia DA. They say that collapse is faster than climate change, but first our Edwards and Chernobyl 2025 evidence answers. It says Russia's economy is already unstable with fake stats and internal problems. That means collapse isn't caused by the plan, it is already happening. Second, their link is too small. Even if they admit our plan is just a signal, one Arctic project doesn't crash a superpower. And extend our cutting oil money makes Russia less aggressive. Our 2AC Moran 2022 and Telga 2022 evidence says that high oil prices fuel war. Every time Russia had a lot of oil money, it attacked someone. Cutting that money slows down its war machine. Prefer our evidence because number one is based on history. The Russian invasions of Georgia, Crimea, and Ukraine all happened after oil booms. Next, it's specific to Russian aggression, not general economic theory. They say that lower prices cause more aggression, but our Telga 2022 evidence says that low oil makes Russia weaker, not bolder. Less money equals fewer tanks, fewer bombs, and less war overall. And second, their Blankenship 2024 evidence is about other countries too, but we focus on Russia. And even if desperation rises, they have a lot less power to act on it. Thank you. Please vote affirmative.
So first, to give an off-time roadmap, the order is going to be the Russia DSAD and then case in the order of solvency and then the warming advantage with an overview on top of the DSAD. The impact of the Russia disadvantage is global nuclear war. The plan causes the impact because it's part of a global clean energy shift which lowers oil demand, that cuts off Russia's oil money, which is the backbone of its war economy. Our model evidence says that Russia's already fragile system could collapse under just a little more pressure. And collapsing a country with thousands of nuclear weapons is incredibly dangerous. Vote negative because the disadvantage outweighs on time frame. Climate change happens over decades and Russia's collapse could happen this year. Risk. The 1 year myth that Russia's already unstable, and that means the plan is exactly the kind of push that causes total breakdown. Next, magnitude. Nuclear war is fast, it kills billions, and even a 1% chance is too high. They think collapse is already happening, but first our Model 23 evidence answers this. It says that collapse needs a trigger and Russia's economy is shaky, but still functioning. The plan is a spark that tips it over. Second, even if things are bad now, that proves that things are fragile, meaning small shocks like the plan are even more dangerous. Next, they say the plan is just a signal, not a cause, but first our Lockhart 22 evidence answers this. It says that the U.S. doing OTEC could send a signal to Russia that many things are changing and ensure the U.S. is committed to renewable energies, which cause them to fear energy transition. But our own Jalil evidence also answers this. It says that the plan's government support and creating a demonstration plant would drastically increase interest in OTEC around the world that causes a green energy transition that Lockhart evidence says collapses Russia. They say that cutting oil money makes Russia less aggressive, but first Smith-Nonini 22 and Model 23 evidence answers this. It says that losing oil money makes Russia collapse, not calm down. No government equals no control over nukes. Second, less money does not equal less danger. A desperate broken state can be just as aggressive, just less predictable. Next, they say our Telga card proves that less oil equals less wars, but first our Blankenship 24 evidence answers this. It says that low oil prices creates 3 risks. Russia fights to seize new oil, starts conflicts to distract its people, and lashes out to signal strength. Second, even if Telga is right about spending, our argument is why countries act aggressively under economic pressure, not just that if they have the budget to go to war. Next, they say aggression also happens during oil booms, but first, our argument is not just about boldness, it's about collapse and desperation. Booms lead to wars of choice and crashes lead to wars of survival. Second, desperate aggression is worse because less rational and more dangerous, especially for a nuclear-armed regime. Next, onto solvency. External 1 and C Varsity 24 evidence which says that OTEC hasn't worked in real-world tests because it's too expensive, unreliable, and easily damaged. Even big companies like Lockheed Martin give up after trying. Prefer evidence because Varsity looks over multiple failed projects across decades, not just one study. It explains why OTEC fails because it's expensive and hard to build, not just that it hasn't worked. It's based on real-world results and not just computer simulation or guesses. The Jalil card assumes that OTEC will work if people people see a demo, but our evidence says that demos have already happened, they just failed. Next, on to warming. Extend that we will adapt to warming. Our 1C Lombard 22 evidence says that humans have already adapted to more than 1 degree Celsius of warming and can continue to do so even with planning a new technology. Prefer evidence because Lombard uses real-world data and history instead of what might happen in the future because of climate change. The evidence doesn't give any examples, timelines, or ways that extinction will happen. Adapted is proven. Okay, that.
Okay, so now I'll be delivering the second affirmative rebuttal speech for this round. Before I begin, I like to do an off-time roadmap. First, I'll be extending our warming advantage, then extending solvency, as well as extending our answers that we're giving for answering the Russia dis ad. Does everybody get that so far? Okay, awesome. Now to my speech. First, the impact of the warming advantage is extinction. Climate change affects the entire planet. Billions of people are at risk from food shortages, extreme heat, and tipping points such as methane release or sea level rise. The plan is the only way to stop this threat. Our Olin 2025 card says that powering carbon removal via OTEC cuts emissions and pulls CO2 out of the air for 500 plus years. That's what the science says we need to do to stop runaway warming. Vote affirmative because we win on magnitude. Climate collapse affects everyone. There is no safe spawn, so quote-unquote safe zone when the earth cooks. Vote for us on time frame. Their own Russia evidence says that it takes years for collapse. We're seeing the effects of climate change right now. Ice melts, heat waves, fires, etc. Even if both sides talk about world-ending threats, ours is real and proven. Theirs is a hypothetical that assumes Russia will have a total breakdown and start firing off nukes. The answer, they'll say that we can adjust and we can adapt to warming, but that's wrong. First, our Carrington 2024 evidence answers this. It says that billions will face life-ending risk, not just being hot, but total collapse of parts of nature that we need to live and homes being destroyed in deadly heat, etc., etc. Second, the scaling matters. We've never had to adapt to things like the second largest body of ice in the world melting or methane gas explosions before. There's no such historical playbook for how to deal with these type of threats. Next, on to solvency. They said that OTEC has failed before, but first our Jalil 2023 card evidence answered this. It says past failures were due to funding, not broken technology. The plan creates the test plan to prove that OTEC can work. Second, their Varsity 2024 card talks about the history. It doesn't address modern technology or how governmental backing can help these situations. Saying nothing can change because it failed once is like saying planes don't work because the Wright brothers crashed in their first early test. We can still solve for what we're solving for with OTEC. Next, on to the Russia dis ad. I only really need to extend one argument because that's all really our side needs. Cutting oil makes Russia less aggressive. R2AC Moran 2022 and Telga 2022 card answers this by saying that Russia gets bold when oil prices are high. That's when they invaded Russia, Crimea, and the Ukraine. Our evidence says the opposite. It says that by reducing Russia's oil profits, it can take away from their war funds. Prefer our evidence because it's historical, not hypothetical. It shows a real-world, real-life pattern of when wars were tied to high oil profits, and specific to Russia, not just some general theory about oil southern countries. They say that we might cause collapse and chaos, but first, our Everest and Chernobyl 2025 card already answered this. It says Russia's economy was already in deep, serious trouble. It was about to fall apart for spending too much on the war in Ukraine. This means that collapse isn't new. It's already happening with or without our plan. Next, they say that our plan is just a signal. Well, if that's true, then it can't be the spark that causes nuclear war. Their link is too small to outweigh our extinction outcome. Next, they say that low oil causes desperation, but first, our Telga evidence already answered this. It says that less oil equals less money and less power. Desperate countries can't fight long wars without funds or resources. Second, they say that even if Russia is mad, that doesn't mean that they can outright win a war. Desperation is weakness, not dangerous. It makes Russia less capable, not more. Vote affirmative. Thank you.